So we did a very popular video on Medi-Cal Updates and the changes that are taking place for Medi-Cal eligibility in 2024. Well, guess what? The time is here. We can celebrate. Yay, there's big changes that have just taken place as we enter 2024, and I want to describe those changes and how it might affect your planning and the planning for your loved ones. All right, so here's the big news. For Medi-Cal eligibility for someone who's disabled, there's no more asset test, all right? It used to be that you had to have under $2,000 of countable assets in order to qualify for Medi-Cal, all right? You had to be poor. It was horrible, it was punishing. And guess what? In every other state, they have these laws, unless they've been able to tweak them a little bit, but California is way ahead of the pack. And I'm so excited for the people in California. There's no more asset test. So you might think, well, Ellen, isn't that fabulous? I have no more planning to do. Well, I wish it was that simple, but unfortunately, there's nuances here, and I want to go through those nuances. So the biggest one is that the income test is still there, all right? They're not going to look at your assets for eligibility, but they are going to look at your income. And this income, they count both earned income and unearned income. Both of those count. So what is that test? Well, for 2024, you can have 138% of the federal poverty level. And that federal poverty level is $14,580 a year. So per month, it's about $1,670 a month, okay? If you earn more than that, and or if you're receiving dividend income or rental income or any combination thereof, and it exceeds $1,670 a month, then you're bumped into Medi-Cal, the share of cost. All right, so what is share of cost? That's when you're required to contribute to your own Medi-Cal costs. Okay, so I want to give you an example of how this works because it's punishing. It's horrible. You don't want to be in the share of cost category. All right, so how do you calculate share of cost? Well, you take your monthly income and then you subtract $600. So this is if you exceed $1,670 a month of income, then the Department of Healthcare Services will do this calculation. So they look at your income and then they subtract $600. That's called the maintenance need level. All right, and that's if you're single. There's other calculations if you're married or if you're married with kids. They consider $600 to be what you need to live on for food, housing, utilities, etc. All right, so that you get to keep to yourself. $600. I know, it's nothing, right? And then you can also subtract health insurance premiums that you might be paying. So if you're paying premiums, let's say for Medicare, you also subtract those premiums from your income. And then guess what? The rest of the income, it's all going to Medi-Cal. So here's an example. Let's say you exceed the $1,670 a month. So you're at $1,800 a month of income. And so we get the $600 freebie, yay, right? So that brings you down to $1,200. And then you spend $200 a month on your Medicare premium, okay? So that brings you down to $1,000 a month. Your share of cost, the amount that you're required to pay to Medi-Cal every month, is $1,000, all right? So let me emphasize, you don't want to exceed that $1,670 a month, all right? So it's really important, keep an eye out. If you're disabled and you're working, there is a huge cost to earning more than $1,670 a month. Should it be this way? I don't think so, but it is what it is.
Hey everyone, if you like my mom's video, like and subscribe.
All right, so another thing you might think is, okay, there's no asset limit, Ellen. So does my child need a special needs trust in order to preserve their Medi-Cal? Well, there's a few things to consider. First of all, if they're getting SSI, Supplemental Security Income, that is still under the federal laws, okay? So SSI, you still have to have under $2,000 of assets. So if somebody's receiving an inheritance and they have SSI, it has to go into a special needs trust. But for Medi-Cal, you might say, well, they're not looking at the assets. It can go into a different trust. It doesn't have to go to a special needs trust. Yes, but what about the income that's going to be generated from those assets, okay? Because if you leave money, let's say, to a revocable trust, or just directly to the individual, and they have an investment of $1 million and it's generating income, then that income, if that income exceeds $1,670 a month, you have just triggered the share of cost that we just talked about. But if their inheritance goes into the special needs trust, any income that's generated remains in the special needs trust. It doesn't count as earned or unearned income because it's held within the special needs trust. Then distributions can be made to your child, for buying things for them and that sort of thing. And that counts as income for IRS for income tax purposes, but it doesn't count as income for Medi-Cal purposes. So I think, for larger inheritances, you still need that special needs trust for income purposes. If it's not a huge amount of money, or if it's just cash, or if it's a residence that's not going to be left out, or maybe you don't receive Medi-Cal and you just get SSDI and Medicare, then you can receive money into, let's say, a lifetime trust, otherwise known as a dynasty trust, and I have a good video on that, right? You could do that, or you could you can receive money directly and you can transfer it into a revocable trust and have somebody else manage it, okay? A lot of our worries with our disabled family members who are still independent and can, fully function and live their lives, but they might be subject to financial predators. They might be really generous and somebody comes along and asks for $20,000 and they just give it to them if they have direct access. So I think it's really important to set up a trust if there's that issue. Set up a trust for your child and have somebody else acting as trustee. That's how you make sure that the child just can't give away the money themselves. And for me, if I were to receive an inheritance and it goes into a trust and somebody else is managing it, honestly, I'd be like, hey, thank you. That's awesome. I'm very happy, okay? So setting up a trust that somebody else manages, I think that's totally fine. And I do have a video on how to choose a successor trustee if that's your concern. But I want to emphasize that you do need to set up some type of trust for your child who's inheriting money. Because if it's just in their name and they die, then it'll go through their estate, and then it's subject to a Medi-Cal reimbursement claim, which we don't want to have, all right? If it's even just in a revocable trust or in a dynasty trust or third-party special needs trust, there should be no Medi-Cal reimbursement claim. So hopefully this has given you a much better idea of how the recent Medi-Cal eligibility changes for the good are affecting you and your loved ones. For more information on how income can affect other types of public benefits, I want to refer you to my video, which is called How Does Income Affect Medi-Cal and Other Benefits? So I talk about the other benefits that you might be interested in that video, and I'll see you over there.
Hello everyone! If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time!